Hey everyone, welcome to our midterm review project. In this project, we're going to create a one-page static HTML CSS website, and it is meant for my foundations class to kind of culminate all of the steps that we've done for the first half of the year in just dealing with static HTML CSS pages. Okay, so on the screen is the finished product. The content, is cybersecurity concepts. There are 6 of them in total in the midterm review. We'll deal with the first 3, and in the actual midterm exam, my students will tackle the last 3. All right, so my students, head on over to your learning management system, which would be Google Classroom or Schoology. Accept the link to your Google Classroom, and you should have this page like this. Once you are here, please accept the assignment, and this will generate, as you've known in the past, your own private repository for the project with the starter code. So at this point, I'm going to pause the video, let you go into your GitHub account, find that repository, and let's call that up on the screen. Okay, and on the screen, I now have the repository that was just created by accepting the assignment. And you should see a couple of folder for assets. If we open that up, the assets folder is going to have 3 images and a source markdown file that will give us the content to copy over into the project for our images and for the content. We'll have the cybersecurity concepts markdown file is the actual content we want to incorporate in the project, so we'll get that from here. Finally, as always for my students, I have a very quick markdown file to remind you of the git commands to push up to link your remote GitHub account with your local integrated development environment with AWS, and also some commonly used Linux commands. So we have that available as well in our resources, and then the README goes over the specifications for the project and what is expected. All right, so let's get started right away. The first step is we want to go over to code, pull that down, and we want to copy the HTTPS reference so that we could clone this. And we're going to clone this, as we have in the past, to our AWS Cloud9 environment. You're welcome to clone this to any environment you are working with if you're not one of my classroom students. Classroom students, head on over to your Cloud9 environment, and you may have a page like this. If not, please close out of everything else you have at top. And we want a couple of things active here. If you have a terminal down here, you could X out of that and go back to view, and view layout vertical split will create that split so that we could come down to the bottom where traditionally that's where our terminal is. Click the plus button, choose new terminal, and remember we want to clone right from the environment, so I'm going to type in git clone and then paste. And again, make sure that you are doing this right from the environment folder and not from any other folder. If you are in another folder, just type in cd space ... and hit enter. All right, so we're going to bring that project in, and you should now see the files on the left-hand side. So if I pull down that cybersecurity concepts MTRs for midterm review, you'll see the assets folder and the markdown files that I referenced before. Okay, so at this point, we want to change directory into that file, cd space, and lowercase c and tab, and I now have that open, and I'm going to clear my terminal. All right, so at this point, we want to create 2 files. As we've done in the past, we want to use the touch command and create our index.html file, and touch command for style.css. Hit enter there. Now we see those 2 files also on the left-hand side in our folder structure. Let's clear that terminal out and begin working on the project. So I'm going to drag that down here, click up in the top pane, and I want to open up index. So there's our index file, HTML, to begin. And remember, we want the basic boilerplate. So we're going to use the Emmet technology within the IDE. And we're going to hit Shift 1 for the exclamation mark, and then just hit Tab, and we have now populated our boilerplate HTML. Let's change our title right away to Cybersecurity Concepts and Part 1. Okay, so that is in the head tag. And now we also want to go down to body, and we want to use a header snippet. And inside of the header snippet, we want an H1 snippet. Inside of the H1, we want the same title, Cybersecurity Concepts 1. Okay. Now, next up, we're going to create, so note, remember, this creates one rectangle, header, and then inside of that rectangle, or box if you will, we have the H1 element, which is a box within the header box. So every HTML element creates a box. So let's come down here. Underneath we want a section snippet, and inside of that section snippet in the opening tag, we want to place our first attribute. Remember, attributes go into the open tags, and we want a class attribute here called gallery. And this is where, within this section, we're going to keep the 3 different text references or blocks of, or posts, blog posts, if you will. They're similar to a blog post. And that section tag will be wrapped completely around these 3 boxes. So now let's create the first one. And that first one we're going to have is a div snippet. Hit enter. And inside of the open tag for div snippet, we're going to have a class of post. Inside of that rectangle, we're going to have an H2. And let me actually spell that right. We want the first one to be defense in depth. And again, I'm getting that from the cybersecurity concepts markdown file. So I should have that open. Let's do that now. And this is our first one, defense in depth, right here. Okay. So we're going to work on the card for this, the paragraph. So we've got an H2 for defense in depth. We're going to have a paragraph tag for all of this stuff. And then we're going to have an ordered list to follow. So let's get that going after the H2. But first we want to put the image tag in. So our image snippet is going to have a source reference, and that source reference is going to come from our assets file. And our first image will be the mobile phone. So hover over that, double tap for your Chromebooks or right click on that, and copy the file path right into that source attribute property. So let's hit Control V. And we have to make one adjustment here. Remember, we're working in the folder already, so we want to eliminate that folder, but we do want to instruct the browser to open up the assets subfolder in order to find that image. So we've got the image in there. Next, after that, we want the paragraph tag. So p snippet. And we're going to bring in everything that I mentioned earlier here. So a comprehensive strategy all the way down to examples. Just hit Control C. Let's grab that. And we're going to paste that inside of our paragraph tag. That's the content that's going to be shown on the screen. And I moved my cursor, so let me fix that. Control V. Did it again. There we go. We got to make sure that the cursor's in between the tags. And finally got that working. One other thing I like to do when I paste stuff in is I'm going to come up to Edit, drop down all the way to Code Formatting. apply code formatting, and it'll just do some proper indentations for us. All right, next up, we want to add an unordered list. So I'm going to move my cursor back out there. And actually, this is an ordered list, I believe. Yes, ordered list is OL. And inside of each ordered or unordered list, we want list items. So we're going to have 3 list items. So let's just copy that. And Control S to save. Let's head on back to our markdown file and bring in list item number 1. The castle secured by a moat, a drawbridge, and guards at a gate. That is one of the examples. So let's come on back to our index and place that inside. And I'm going to pause the video at this point, and would you do the same for the other 2? Okay, welcome back. I've got the other 2 in here, and remember I got that from item 2, your home computer is secured by locks on the door, and the company data is secured by firewall password encryption. Those are 2 and 3. We want that in the bullets for 2 and 3 here. Notice the indentation again. I'm just going to come up to edit one more time. Code forming after a paste to align all that back up. All right, so at this point, let's see where we are at. We have an entire section which is wrapped around the div for class post. So I'm going to come down here and place a comment. Remember, comments are an open tag with exclamation dash dash, and we're going to put close post 1 dash dash and then close the tag. So that is a comment. And we're going to copy that, put it right after section, a couple of spaces, and close gallery, if I could spell it right. So after section, we're going to close the gallery class. Again, if I move my cursor right onto that closing tag, you'll see it's highlighted up on line 16. So very important, we want, if we're doing rectangles within rectangles with HTML elements, we want to know the parent-child structure. So that's what we're keeping tabs of here. Section opens on 16, closes on 32, then the next child is the post. And then the children of the post are the H2, the image, paragraph tag, and unordered list. So we've got that all set up. Great, let's save that and let's take a quick preview. And if my preview's popping down here, I'm just going to close out of this pane. So I'm going to come down to here, click on this 3 bars and close the pane. And we'll open that back up later, but right now it gives me a little more real estate. Move my cursor inside of the index file, and there is our preview. So we've got defense in depth, we've got the image, which is quite large, we've got the paragraph tag, and the bullets. So no styling is done yet, and because of that, that preview does not look all that great. Remember, we want the preview, we want to focus on mobile first. So let's start thinking a little bit about styling here, and remember the first thing we want to do, let's open up that style.css web page, and let's see, the first thing we want to do is back in index, right inside the head tag, right above the title, let's use the link snippet and type in style.css so that we are linking the style page with our index.html page. Okay. At this point, pause your videos and we're going to head on over to the style page momentarily. Okay. I've opened up my style page, style.css, and would you type in the following color palette? And again, the wording primary, secondary, tertiary, accent really is just for me. We're going to use these somewhat similar to that, but in various aspects throughout the project. So I'm asking that you use the same. So my classroom students, pause the video again and start typing those in in a comment form. So remember now, CSS comments are backslash or /star and then */. So pause the video here, come on back once you have those typed in so that we could reference them and copy them with ease. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Now let's get some basic styling set up with our HTML parent tag. And we want margin at 0, padding at 0, and box sizing border box. And that just helps with calculations for the width with our box model, as we've talked about in the past. So I've got, remember, style, CSS styling is the element we want styled. So this is the HTML element. If I go all the way back to index, that includes the tag from line 2 all the way down to line 37. So that is the entire page. And that tag, notice there's no dot or hashtag in front of it. So we are referencing a direct HTML element. And then inside of the curly brackets are all the different property and values for CSS. So margin 0, padding 0, and box sizing border box basically sets the project to kind of eliminate any defaults that different browsers might have with margin and so on. Next up, we want body tag. So this will be the entire body tag, and we want to set the background color first. And background color, we're going to use, let's see, this one right here, the 251749. And at the end, we have background color is the property, value is the hexadecimal reference for that color, and then semicolon after. And at this point, we're going to move on down to the header. And we want a different background color for the header. And we're going to pull in the 495579 number. So I'm also getting the hashtag with that. So semicolon after. Color for the text, we're actually going to keep this as white. So all Fs. Padding, we want 1.5 rem. So remember, rem is the relative to the entire default number of pixels. So that default 16, so it would be 1.5 times 16. Okay, let's see. And we want a margin on this of 1.2 rem. Okay. Now, before we go any further, let's see. I've got, notice the red X came up here, and I'm just missing a colon after the property. So margin, colon, value 1.2 rem. Let me hit save here, and I want to address two other things before we break here. Let me address the H1 and H2s. So H1, comma H2 means anywhere you see H1 or H2, we want this styling to apply. We want a text align center. So we want that in the center of our page. And finally, any images on this on the project, we want to be responsive. So remember, the image was very big, and technically the image is inside of the post rectangle. So we are going to ask that to take the width of that element only, and then we're going to control the size of that post rectangle. So let's head on back to our style sheet. And how do we do that? So remember, This is going to be max width 100%. And height, we want set to auto based on the device. And we're going to put a slight border radius on the picture of 2 rem. Okay. All right, let's pause our video at this point and let's see where we are at. Okay, welcome back. Let's head on over to our index.html file in the editor. Move your cursor in there somewhere, make sure you hit save, and let's bring up the preview. And notice now we've got the 2 background colors working. We've got cybersecurity concepts, that H1 is in white. The other titles are in black, so we're going to change that ultimately. And take a look at the image here. Now the image did shrink down to the size of the post div, and the actual when we move that based on viewport, the image follows along. So at this point, we're going to stop this video, continue and wrap up the project in video number 2 that follows. So thank you for your patience. We'll see you in the next one, everyone.